What is up, everybody? My name is Sweat, and we're back talking NFL Pick'ems Week 8. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of my picks from this past Sunday, and then I'm going to let you know who my picks are for this upcoming week. Last week, I was able to go 12-2, which is pretty good, but let's see if I was able to beat that for this week. Starting off with the Thursday night game, Broncos and Saints. It was a one-sided game. The Broncos dominated. The Saints just had too many injuries. Derek Carr didn't play, Olave, Shaheed, they were all out. Plus they got a few more injuries during the game. Rattler didn't look good, so the Saints are just not a good team right now. Moving on to the London game, Jaguars and Patriots. Jaguars dominated. The Patriots started off the game all right, but they just weren't able to keep up in the end, and the Jaguars dominated. Next up, Bills and Titans. I'm not going to lie, I was a little worried in the first half. We went down 10-0. And I was wondering, what the hell is going on? This team isn't very good, and we're losing at home. Then we made it 10-7 going into the half, and whatever was talked about by the coaches in the locker room, it worked because we ended up scoring 27 points and held them to 0 in the second half, and we ended up winning the game 34-10. So we need to start off games stronger and faster, especially against the better teams. Next up, Colts and Dolphins. That was kind of an ugly game. I didn't really get a chance to see too much of it, but I know it was a low-scoring game. Tyler Huntley didn't play well, and then I believe he got hurt. Anthony Richardson also didn't play well again. I think the Colts just need to start Joe Flacco moving forward. With that being said, the Colts did win the game, and Jonathan Taylor should come back this week. So I'm not too sure what they're going to do at the quarterback position, but they got a big game coming up against Houston, so we'll see. Next up was the game of the week, Lions and Vikings. That game was pretty exciting. It kept going back and forth, back and forth. I know David Montgomery got hurt, but the Lions ended up pulling it out in the end. Moving on to the Bengals and Browns. Unfortunately, Deshaun Watson's out for the season. I know he wasn't playing very well, but they're just not a good team right now. And Cincinnati got another win, so they're slowly creeping their way up to a playoff spot. So we'll see what they can do. They got a big game coming up this week at home against Philly. Next up was the other game of the week, Packers and Texans. That game also came down to the end. I believe it was the very last play. McManus kicked the field goal to win it, and Green Bay ended up pulling it out in the end. Next up, Seattle and Atlanta. I was pretty disappointed in Atlanta. I really thought they were going to win the game, but Seattle ended up blowing them out. Just too many turnovers, and Atlanta wasn't able to get into the groove of things all game. Moving on to Philly and the Giants. I don't know what happened to the Giants. They're kind of like Carolina. They put up a decent fight every week, even though their record doesn't show, but they just laid an egg this week and Philly blew them out. Speaking of Carolina, they ended up getting blown out at Washington. Unfortunately, Jaden Daniels did go out with a rib injury, so we'll see if he's going to come back this week because they got a big game coming up against the Bears. Next up, the Rams and Raiders. Both teams aren't very good right now. The Rams did end up pulling it off in the end, but the Raiders still don't have a quarterback. They're going to have a long season, and the Rams, they've been banged up all year. But watch out for them tonight because I just got an alert that said Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp are both coming back tonight. And that changes things dramatically going up against one of the top teams in the NFC in the Vikings. Next up was the Super Bowl rematch, Chiefs and Niners. Chiefs did it again. They're the only undefeated team left in the league. Both quarterbacks didn't play well, but the Chiefs just did what they always do and they figured it out in the end and got the win. Next up is the Sunday night game, Jets and Steelers. The Steelers ended up dominating in the end. They won 37-15. The Jets did get an early lead. I believe they went up 10 to 12 points, but too many mistakes. Aaron Rodgers, a couple more interceptions. Devontae Adams was almost non-existent. I think he had 3 catches, but I expect him, we all expect him to get more involved moving forward, but they have all the talent in the world. Let's just see if they can put all the pieces together. And as far as the Monday night games go, the Ravens smashed on the Bucks. Unfortunately, both receivers went down. Chris Godwin's out for the year with a dislocated ankle, and Mike Evans is going to be out for anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks with a hamstring injury. The second game was pretty exciting though. The Cardinals ended up winning it on the last play of the game with a field goal. The Chargers did have a couple opportunities to win this game, but the Cardinals found a way and they got the win. So in the end, I ended up going 11-4 for this week. Not as good as last week. I did go 12-2, but I still think it was pretty good. And let's see if I can do better this week. Starting off with tonight's game, Rams and Vikings. This game is harder for me to pick now, knowing that Puka and Cup are going to be back tonight. They're at home. I'm still going to take the Vikings in a close game. Moving on to the Sunday games. From the looks of things, it doesn't look like there's going to be very many close games like there was last week. So starting off with the Ravens and Browns, that's an obvious pick. I'm going to go with the Ravens. The Browns are just not a good team. Next up, Colts and Texans. I'm going to take the Texans. It is another divisional game, and I think it's going to be close, especially with Jonathan Taylor coming back. It's almost going to be like the first game they had, which came down to the end, but I still think the Colts should start Joe Flacco. Next up, Packers and Jaguars. I'm going to take the Packers. I just think they're one of the top teams in the NFC, and the Jaguars are just not very good. Next up, Titans at Lions. I'm going to take the Lions. They should win this one fairly easy, even if David Montgomery doesn't play. Next up, Falcons at Bucks. This game might be a little bit more closer than people think. I know the Bucks just lost their top two receivers in Evans and Godwin, but the Falcons didn't look too well this past week at home against Seattle. So I think I'm still going to take the Falcons. Next up, Jets at Patriots. I'm going to take the Jets again like I did last week, but I'm hoping the Patriots win because Aaron Rodgers seems to have turned into this crybaby, and I just want to see how he handles things whenever they lose the game. Next up, Cardinals and Dolphins. I'm going to take the Dolphins. Tua's coming back this week, and let's just hope he can stay healthy. I think this is going to be the game of the week, Eagles at Bengals. I'm going to take the Eagles in a close one. I know both teams are really good right now. The Eagles just came off a blowout win, and the Bengals just came off of a divisional win on the road. But I'm going to take the Eagles in a tight one. Next up, Saints at Chargers. I'm going to take the Chargers for obvious reasons. The Saints are really hurt right now. I don't know if Derek Carr, Chris Olave is coming back. But even if they do, I think the Chargers bounce back at home. Moving on to Chicago at Washington. I'm going to take the Bears only if Jaden Daniels doesn't play. If he does, then I'm going to take Washington. But a lot of people have said that the Bears look good because they've played a lot of bad teams. They beat the Titans, the Jaguars, the Panthers, and the Rams. But they can't control their schedule, so they're doing what they got to do. But I still think it's going to be a good game either way. Marcus Mariota came in and looked good for Washington, so I'm excited to see that game. Moving on to the Chiefs and Raiders. Obviously, I'm going to take the Chiefs. The Raiders are just not a good team right now, and there's really not much to say about that game. Next up, the Panthers and Broncos. The Panthers are going to start Bryce Young again because Andy Dalton got into a car accident, so I hope he's okay. But Denver's back at home. They look good against New Orleans last week, and I think they get the win this week. Moving on to the Sunday night game, Cowboys and Niners. I kind of want to pick the Cowboys, but I'm going to pick the Niners. And as far as the Monday night game goes, Giants and Steelers. I wish they would flex this game out to a better game, but I'm going to take the Steelers in a blowout. So those are going to be my picks for this week. Let me just give you a quick rundown who I picked. Vikings, Ravens, Texans, Packers, Lions, Falcons, Jets, Dolphins, Eagles, Bills, Chargers, Bears, Chiefs, Broncos, Niners, and Steelers. So nobody's on a bye week this week, 16 games. So let's see if I can do better than 12 wins this week. It's going to be tough, but we'll see what happens.